Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speak with Confidence podcast, brought to you by Princeton Toastmasters. I am Ritu Kaul, your host. Every episode, we will bring you real journeys, tips, and inspiring stories to show how confidence and public speaking is not reserved for a few. It's a talent anyone can build. On our first episode today, we have a very special guest, Baresic, who's a member of Princeton Toastmasters Club. Welcome, Kristen, to our podcast.
Hi, Ritu. Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor to be the first guest.
Yes, absolutely, and we are looking forward to the discussion. Kristen has worn many hats, from working in developmental disabilities to running a New Jersey grant program to help fund projects addressing adverse childhood experiences, to now working on a regenerative vegetable farm in Long Valley. At the start of next year, Kristen will begin study to become a yoga instructor. He also has plans to publish a memoir in a few years. Welcome, Kristen. You have worn so many diverse hats, from disabilities to now farming. Tell us what brought you to Princeton Toastmasters.
Yeah, career-wise, pretty crazy road for me. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I think I want to get into development, but what brought me to Toastmasters was when I was at that grant program, I had a couple of opportunities to speak in front of people. And I guess it was maybe about 4 or 5 times, and I was able to do it in person once. And I really felt curious about it. Of course, I was nervous, but there was something about it that appealed to me. And it was like when I first did it, especially in person, I could feel like the power of being able to speak in front of people and realizing that my voice matters and that I can have a message and I can reach people about whatever it is I want to talk about. In that context, I had given a couple of different online presentations. Uh, there was a couple of them that I created myself. I didn't have many guests for those couple that I did, but I did get practice in presenting, which was really neat. And yeah, I had to use the whole slide deck and everything. It was virtual. And I also had an experience co-facilitating an event with people who we were funding. It was a conversation about adverse childhood experiences. And we got a little bit vulnerable. We kind of shared what we were comfortable with about our past, what we're seeing in our communities, things like that. And so being able to co-facilitate is kind of an adjacent skill set to public speaking, and which you did recently in your panel discussion a couple of weeks back. So that's what really got me interested. And I let my curiosity lead me to Toastmasters to kind of test it out a little bit more. I went to a couple of meetings and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the speaking, being able to listen to people's speeches and learning from that. And in fact, at my very first Toastmasters meeting as a guest, I was called up for table topics. And that was another experience that really spoke to me because I was asked a question, and I think I went for like a minute and 10 seconds or something, but I got really philosophical and I was like, I can't believe that I just said that in front of a group of people. I never thought that I would be able to do that. And so that was really what pulled me in.
Wonderful. It's so interesting to hear your story. So, your work gave you an opportunity to speak in public with a set of people and facilitating. Something in that experience piqued your interest, and you enjoyed it because I think, it's important that we have a message and that can help others.
Mhm.
Every voice matters, and that's what we do at Toastmasters. But you didn't stop there. It's interesting how that journey piqued your interest. And you actually landed at a Toastmasters club where you said, let's look at how to enhance that journey further. Happy to hear that you were called for the first time. Many people get so nervous that you could speak for a full minute. That's remarkable as an accomplishment. So, how long have you been a member of Toastmasters Club now?
So it actually is not even a year yet. It will be a year in like mid-November, I think. So 10 months. And
10 months.
it's been an interesting experience.
Wow, wonderful. So tell us something about that first experience of being called on the stage and given a question, a table topics. It makes most people nervous, I know. I would be nervous. Share a bit about that experience. How did it make you feel? Did it change something in you?
So that very first experience, I actually got really lucky. And I may not have felt the way I do about it if I was asked something different. I can't recall what the question was, but it did have kind of a philosophical aspect to it. And that is very much in my wheelhouse. I'm very much a philosopher at heart. I reflect a lot, and I'm always kind of back and forth on, well, what's the truth in this? What's the truth in that? Even though these kind of seem opposite, what's the relationship between them? And I really try to synergize different philosophies and things like that. And so I was asked this question, and immediately I just had this thought. I was like, this could not have been more perfect. And so I took about probably a good 4 or 5 seconds to gather my thoughts. And I just started speaking and I just let it all flow out. It was almost like I wasn't even me that was speaking. It was almost like it was coming from what people would call like the source. Like this, like when people do creative work, they don't attribute it to themselves. Like it's almost felt like something was coming through me. I don't mean to get super spiritual and esoteric, but that was how it felt. I mean, it did feel like me too, right? Like I have these thoughts and I think about these things, but the way that it came out, it felt so perfect. And even just being able to speak for that 1 minute, I was like, I that could resonate with somebody and they could go home thinking about this and it could change their life. You know what I mean? Who knows? So it was just a really, really neat experience, neat confidence building experience for me too. I've always kind of struggled with my confidence. And I think at that time in the position I was in at work, I felt a little bit more confident. So there was that, but just even still being able to speak in front of people as calmly as I did was very like, I don't know, it was like very grounding, weirdly.
Well, that's excellent. Being your first time of speaking on a question, which is a table topic, and for the benefit of our viewers, table topic is actually you're called on the stage, given a topic or a question. It's impromptu speaking, it builds impromptu skills. So, for somebody who's been first time at the meeting to be feeling so comfortable talking about a subject and you felt so one with what was the question is amazing. I think you're meant to be a speaker. That shows. Tell us something about your first speech, the journey to your first speech, the preparation part of it. How did you actually give your speech and how did it feel like?
My icebreaker was about a psychedelic experience I had when I was 21. And that experience completely changed my life. I was very, very depressed at the time. I was having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning. I was sleeping through my classes um, at school, and I was in a relationship that I absolutely hated. I was living at home. I was going to school, to university at a place that I just didn't connect with. I felt no connection to it at all. I was just in a really bad place. And so I wound up taking mushrooms recreationally. And I just kind of had this like mystical experience where I felt connected to everything. And it actually cured my depression. And I was kind of on this life high for about 6 to 12 months after, where actually I felt a lot more confident and I was getting into things that I had never been interested in before. I started to develop my intellect, things like that. At the time when I joined Toastmasters, I was actually writing about that experience in this memoir that I've been writing. And I just felt that it was a really neat topic to talk about, to introduce myself to the group as an icebreaker, because that's kind of the whole point, is for people to get to know you a little bit. And I'm very much about being open-minded, and that's what that experience did for me. And I felt that that was a really neat message to put in the icebreaker, and for people to get to know the part of me that's open-minded, and an experience that kind of laid the groundwork for the rest of my life, really. But to get back to how it relates to Toastmasters, so yeah, I just made an outline of the different points, what I wanted to hit, and then I kind of organized it so that it makes sense. And towards the end of it, I put the benefits that I got out of the experience. And it actually kind of came together fairly easily because I had just written about it. So that one was kind of easy for me in a way. I had a lot more trouble with my next speech, but that was how it came about for me. It came about pretty organically, I would say.
That's a wonderful thing that you have told us that how did you think about your first speech and introducing yourself for the club to know you, but also sharing something which was a pivotal changing point. You also showed vulnerability in sharing what you shared. I remember that first speech of yours. So you have described to us what the writing experience was and how you thought about what you would share with in your first speech. Tell me something more about delivery of the speech. How did you prepare for it, or how did the speaking part of it go well? Did it come organically to you after the speech was written, that it felt so natural that you didn't have a stage fear or you didn't have any sort of inhibitions? Talk to us through some of those points.
Yeah, I chose to challenge myself by not using note cards. And I practiced a lot. Even though I knew the story and I've told the story to people many times and I wrote about it and I made the outline, and even after practicing 10 times, it didn't feel like it was enough. I just kept practicing and practicing. I had to have practiced that speech like close to 30 or 40 times, maybe even close to 50. I practiced it a lot and I really made sure to get it down. And going into it, I felt, when I was ready to give the speech, I felt pretty confident that I had it down. I got on stage, I started, I got through part one, no problems. And then it felt in the moment like disaster struck, because my mind completely blanked out. And I was like, oh my God, what's next? So I took a pause, trying to think, what was the next part of this? And then I'm thinking, everybody's looking at me. And in my mind, like 20 or 30 seconds has gone by, which was absolutely not the case. It was like 5 seconds. But it felt like an eternity trying to think of what the next part of my speech was. And I said, after probably like 5 or 6 seconds, I'm having trouble remembering, just bear with me. And everybody was super supportive. Like, we're here, Christian, take your time, don't worry about it. Just everybody was so encouraging and supportive. And I think that helped get me back on track. So I was
Right.
able to pick up and completed the rest of the speech. And the way I went about it, I didn't try to be fancy with gesturing or using the stage. My goal was to present my speech successfully and to get my point across. That was really it. And so I hit my goal. And even though I had that belabored pause that didn't feel great in the moment, I still felt like it was a pretty big accomplishment. And I felt that I had started my speaking journey successfully.
No, absolutely. I was there when you gave that speech. First of all, it was a very engaging speech. I can tell you that. I do remember it. You need so much of courage to come to the stage the first time that I think you had the right goal in mind, that what does success look like on your first speech? Being able to communicate and being able to get through it, because it's just the starting of the journey. But
Yeah.
tell me, it's interesting that that's what happened in your first speech. You have been giving speeches and you have been taking different roles at the club where you're speaking on the stage. How has that first speech changed you, or set you up for the next level of success at the club? What has your journey been like? Are there any pivotal points in your speaking journey in the last 8 to 9 months that you've been at a club that you can definitely see growth and improvement in your confidence in public speaking?
I think the biggest thing it did for me was it was like the launching pad. It motivated me to want to continue being committed because I was successful. And even if I wasn't, I guess I would still be committed because I would want it. But still, like it feels good to start off on the right foot, you know? That brought me into my second speech, which I had a little bit of trouble preparing because it was the second speech is writing a speech with a purpose. And I got so hung up on my purpose for the speech. And I kept like had all these different ideas and I'm going back and forth and I'm not having a process because I don't trust it. And then I got an idea and I outlined it and I was like, no, I don't like it. And it was like this whole thing. And eventually I just kind of decided on something and I said, this is what I'm going with. And that's it. I'm not going to keep flip-flopping. And so a good few months went by before I actually had something and started practicing. And during that time, from the time I started Toastmasters until that time, I took some roles and I did a few table topics questions. I think at that point I did like three. And I had joined the table topics competition. I think it was at the end of last year, the beginning of the new year, something like that. So all of those experiences helped with my growth as well. Just to, in terms of feeling a little bit more confident. One thing I noticed taking up roles and being a regular at the meetings was that the experienced Toastmasters would give like a little spiel at the beginning of their grammarian report, or even if like at the beginning of the word of the day, like maybe giving the history of the word or kind of doing something a little bit different off the cuff that you wouldn't really expect. And if I wasn't going to Toastmasters meetings, I might not have observed that. So in addition to preparing that second speech, I was also observing and taking in like what works. One of the speeches that really spoke to me while I was writing my second speech was actually one of your speeches, and I actually complimented you on it. You were speaking about your communication style, and your communication style, at least in the example you gave in the speech, is not static. You really spoke to having a flexible communication style and having a challenge communicating with somebody. And you kept trying to communicate this message. And what you realized is like you had to go through different iterations of being able to communicate and you finally reach this person. And I loved the message and the way that the structure of the speech and how you spoke made it easy to understand. And although I may not remember the details, it's the main message that really stuck with me. And that I think that is one of the really valuable aspects of speaking. The details are important. And if you can remember the details, that's great. But you also do want to kind of have a big picture aspect to it where you can take home the real message. But so the structure and the content of your speech were really good, but the way you delivered it was also just in my opinion, a masterclass in how you engage an audience. Your intonations were varied, your gesturing was varied, the eye contact with the audience could not have been better. I mean, you really hit on so many cylinders, and I was like, that is where I want to get to. I'll obviously have my own style. I don't just want to copy you, but like to have that confidence and to like to be able to move around the stage and talk with that enthusiasm. And I want to use the word intensity. Like you weren't intense in the sense of being like overbearing, but just intense in terms of confidence. Just like, I'm here. Like, I know you're listening and I know what I have to say matters. And it was really, that really gave it so much power to me. So that kind of gave me an idea of what I want my future as a speaker to look like. Um, I'm not sure I have anything else to say as far as my journey. I think a lot of it is observations and trying to emulate what I see on stage, reflecting on my own experiences. And I think just the repetition of getting up and speaking in front of people, no matter how short the opportunity, is just gives you a little more confidence, even if it's a hair. It gives you a little bit more practice, even if it's just a hair. And it does inevitably contribute to your growth. And I could definitely say that that's my experience.
Wonderful, Christian. That's so, so nice to hear your journey because I think we all inspire each other, and it's so inspiring to see somebody's journey and pivotal points. Thank you for the compliment on my speech. It's really touching. But I hear you say a lot of things, and for the benefit of our viewers, I want to put those points in from what I hear from your journey. One of the facts is that you're saying just going to the meetings and seeing others speak is so much of learning in itself because everybody has a certain speaking style. They're talking about different topics, they present in different ways. And just getting exposed to that diversity and that level of speaking and those many number of speeches itself teaches you some of the pointers on how you could build and develop your speeches in terms of an approach or how you could be speaking on the stage. The second thing I heard you say was that it's not important to only give speeches at Toastmasters. You can take up several roles because somebody is convening the meeting as a Toastmaster, somebody is being a grammarian, somebody is being a timekeeper. These are roles that give you an opportunity to be on the stage and speak to an audience. It doesn't always have to be the speech. And what I heard you say is that you took up a lot of those roles, and within that, you saw your growth because I always feel speaking confidently is a muscle. It's like a workout. The more you use it, it just becomes second nature. I have experienced it firsthand myself as well, so I would completely concur with that. I think some of those points are interesting for others who want to build public speaking confidence. If you have a club close by, go to the club, even if you're not wanting to prepare a whole speech, which takes time, writing a speech and what the thought process around it should be. You can just take up roles and start there. Thank you for sharing that journey and those pivotal points that helped your growth. What is the advice that you'd like to give to somebody who wants to start their journey of public speaking or speaking with confidence?
So I have a couple pieces of advice. First, whether it's Toastmasters or another public speaking group, go to the meetings regularly, be committed because you'll, like I said earlier, observing different speaking styles and what works and what doesn't work, and even how people evaluate speeches will really help you gain an understanding of the mechanics of public speaking, kind of how it works. Of course, getting the practice in there. It's very different observing and doing. So you also have to have the doing. So attend the meetings, observe, but also have the courage to go in front of people and to speak and to find your voice. That's first. And also, I want to say, kind of related to that, don't be afraid of table topics. Or if you are afraid of it, don't let it prevent you from performing. It can feel very high stakes because you're speaking off the cuff, but it's really an excellent opportunity for you to be able to practice. And earlier today, I was thinking about it, and our table topic sessions are 2 minutes or less. If you do 3 table topics questions in 1 year, that's one additional speech because most speeches are 5 to 7 minutes. So if you're able to do 3 table topics, you're able to get essentially a whole nother speech, which is really valuable practice, right? Like I said, it adds up little by little. Another piece of advice I have is to trust your evaluators. It can be really, really difficult to hear feedback for growth. You want to hear the compliments, that always feels great. My second speech, I thought I did an awesome job, and I wound up being really disappointed by my evaluation. And I actually went to my evaluator afterwards, which I feel kind of bad about. And I didn't argue with her, but I was like, I thought I did this differently, and I was like, I thought I made more eye contact than you said I did. The evaluators really are there to help you. They don't want to bring you down. Like the example I gave earlier, everybody was super supportive when I had a tough moment. So if you get something in your evaluation that might be triggering for you, that might be the thing that you most need to work on. So yeah, I kind of, it took me a little while to put my ego aside and say, yeah, I should really probably work on that in my next speech, which is actually next Thursday.
Wow, wow. No,
Yeah.
that's very interesting, the tips that you're giving, and they're very useful. I especially like your perspective on if you're able to speak 3 table topics, think of it as you've given one speech because you're on the stage and you're speaking impromptu. That's very interesting. And second thing that you mentioned about evaluation is such a valid point. You think that you've done a fantastic job of the speech on the stage, but there is something that comes in an evaluation that takes you by surprise, or it was different than what you thought. But I think you're getting an evaluation from somebody in the audience. Like, don't think of them as evaluators. It's an audience receiving your speech. And it's
Mm,
so nice to have a different perspective or somebody who sees not what you have seen. And it has
mhm.
always helped me grow. One of the feedbacks I used to always get is about opening up my body language. And I thought I was doing okay. It's interesting you mentioned that speech in this in our episode here, because I'd like to tell the viewers that's a speech that I practiced with an added focus on body language, and it
Mm,
changed the game. You felt the power on the stage.
yeah.
And the power was not only speech, the power was really my body language. And I got to hear from my mentor many times that feel free and open up your body language. And I thought I'm expressive, I use hand gestures a lot. I practiced a lot with a couple of people I thought whose body language was really, really good. And I think it changed that aspect forever for me. And my mentor also told me, I told him that it was so difficult for me to do that because I felt I was exaggerating it. He said it was not looking exaggerated on the stage. And he
Mhm.
told me something very important. He says, don't go back to your old style. Grow from here.
Right.
I think the Toastmasters system is so fantastic. You have evaluators who are your co-members who are also on the growth journey. Some of them are ahead of you, some of them are just starting, but they have very keen observation points. And I think that itself contributes to a lot of growth. It is not only about giving your speech, but actually getting evaluated as what I want to do in my next speech, what I want to change in my next speech. And I think that's so powerful because in real life, it's rare that you get a feedback. You would go and speak on a stage. You don't know how impactful you are, and you might be thinking you're impactful, but your audience might receive it differently. So, this is such a good testing ground, I feel, where you can
Yeah.
try out
And
different things. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And I think to your point, people will come up to you and compliment you on your speech, but I highly doubt anybody in the audience is going to come up to you and say, "Nah, you could have done this better." Right? Like, so in this context, it really is the only place where you can test things out and then have people say, "Yeah, this worked or this didn't work. And here's what you can do better."
absolutely. Absolutely. What is that one message you would like our listeners to carry from the episode today?
Be committed. If you're going to do it, then do it. If you really want to become a better speaker, take every opportunity to observe other people, reflect on what they are showing you, reflect on your own experiences, and take the opportunities when they're there to speak. And that doesn't just have to be at Toastmasters. One of one of the first times I spoke in public was with note cards. I actually asked if I could take 5 minutes to speak in front of the group because I wanted to give context to the situation. So taking an opportunity doesn't always mean that you're offered it, but it means creating an opportunity for yourself.
That's a wonderful thought. My last question, outside of Toastmasters, what are some of your passion and hobbies?
All right. It's a good question. I work on a farm, as you know, and I really love gardening. And I grow with my roommates. It's kind of a collaborative effort, but yeah, we grew all sorts of stuff this summer, tomatoes, cucumbers. I grew garlic over the winter last year for the first time, and I now have garlic seed for this year, so that's pretty cool. So gardening is one. I'm an outdoors guy. I like being outside, so I enjoy hiking and backpacking. My favorite place to hike is the Bear Mountain Harriman State Park area, just over the border in upstate New York. Seen lots of wildlife there. They have tons of trails, shelters. Number three I'll give you is I love cooking. I love
Wow.
cooking. Yep. I fancy myself a pretty good chef. I've practiced a lot over the past dozen years or so. And when I go to make something now, I always feel confident it's going to come out great. And sometimes it doesn't.
But the part of learning and growth, Christian, we'd love for you to invite and get something for us at
Well, I
Toastmasters at one of the
love
meetings.
hosting. I love hosting. So if I could host some Toastmasters folks, I'd be more than glad.
Wonderful. We are going to take you up on that offer soon.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us in this podcast, and thank you for sharing your journey for all our viewers. And thank you for everybody tuned in today. This is our first episode. We are excited what it will unfold and bring for people who are starting their journey on public speaking or to speak with confidence. We hope to bring you more inspiring story in the coming episodes.
Thank you, Ritu. And thank you for starting this podcast too.
Thank you. That's amazing. I'm enjoying it, having fun with it, and hoping that this journey of talking to each other would inspire others to take up the journey of public speaking without hesitation.